I am the last one, y'all. And so I need some energy real quick. Can I get 3 claps? 3 more claps. 3 more claps. All right, I'm feeling it. Let's hope I can manage the clicker, the mic, and my little notebook here at the same time. Hi everyone, my name is Durell Coleman, and today I want to tell you 3 stories. I want to tell you a story of hardship, a story of failure, and a story of hope. This year I had the chance to meet a woman in Cincinnati, Ohio, who told me the story of her life. And she especially got to get into the details of where she is in her life right now and some of the hardships that she's facing. We'll call her Jane. I interviewed Jane, had a conversation with her, and she told me that currently she takes 2 buses every day to transport her child to a good school. She's pregnant. She is looking for work, doesn't have a partner right now that she can rely on. And lastly, that on top of that, the housing situation that she's experiencing is one that is fraught. She has to apply for housing in the same establishment every single month to make sure that she can stay there. So she's constantly stressed and worried that she might not be able to remain. This work was part of my company's work, DC Design, to eliminate Black infant mortality in Cincinnati. We're working with an incredible organization called Cradle Cincinnati that has already managed to reduce infant mortality by 42%, and they hired us to help them think through what could we do next? How can we go deeper? Our process is focused on engaging community, understanding what all stakeholders need, and developing solutions that live in harmony with that ecosystem. Our goal as a company is to eliminate multi-generational poverty and to uplift Black, brown, and low-income communities. And as Jane was talking to me about her story, I was reflecting on the people that I've met across my life as well who have similar challenges. One of the things that Jane told me was that for her, one of the big issues is that the programs that she's offered are transient. They are short-term, or they exist to meet only present needs. They do not create a path towards stability for her, which is something that she deeply wants. I also reflected on the reality, which is that we learned through our research that with respect to infant mortality and reducing the rate of infant mortality, something that Black families experience at twice the rate of the national average, there are a number of major indicators, all of which Jane mentioned. One of those is the lack of access to basic needs, so housing and food. Another is maternal stress while a baby is in the womb. Another is support, having a support system that you can rely on in that moment. And so what became really true and real for me in that moment as well was just how important it is that we get this right. We figure out how to address this issue in a long-term sense. What I want to talk about today is what that approach looks like. What does it look like for us to approach social challenges in a more lasting way? And so first, I want to talk a little bit about a story of failure. In 2020, during the protests after the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I was exhausted. I was exhausted because we had been through this cycle so many times already. Police killing, protest, ensuing unrest. Additional lives are always lost in that aftermath as well, a period of calm, and then the reignition of that same system. And so I dove deep into research to really clarify what I was seeing. Because having already worked at that time in redesigning aspects of foster care and criminal justice and housing and education, I really wanted to connect the dots to make sure that we were focused on the right things, to actually be able to move the needle for those who need it most. And what I discovered is that there are 5 systems of Black inequality. They're housing, education, employment, health, and criminal justice. They string together to create a cycle of multi-generational poverty in this country. And that our current methods of approaching those is not going to get us to the outcome that we need. And so what I want to talk about, again, is what could we be doing? What should we add to what we're doing now? What mindset does every social change agent need to have in mind in order to make sure that we create the outcomes we're really looking for? These three approaches are our primary methods of creating change right now. We have equity-based approaches. These are things like DEI programs, affirmative action programs, things that seek to address historical wrongs that have happened to ensure that folks have a shot at the American dream. Secondly, we have long-term programs that don't offer a path towards stability or self-sufficiency. So our welfare system is something that is essential that we have. It is something that we need to make sure exists. People need a floor, a baseline to ensure that in their hardest times, they do not hit the bottom. At the same time, talk to people who are using this system, and they will often tell you how challenging it is to get off of it, to move off of it, because of the giant leaps and bounds in income that have to be made in order to progress from that system. And lastly, we have point source solutions, which is what Jane was talking about as well. Solutions that serve the now, they serve today, but they do not fortify that individual for the long term and for the future. When we think about these systems, we know that many of them have been in play for the last 50 to 70 years. And what I posit is that we need to, again, add an additional mindset to that mix. Because there are some key things that my research on the 5 systems of Black inequality also revealed have not changed in a really long time. So a few statistics. The black-white wealth gap in America is as bad today as it was in 1968. In 1862, Black Americans owned 0.5% of this country. In 1962, Black Americans owned 1.5%, and today Black Americans own 2.5% of the country. Lastly, Black Americans have experienced an unemployment rate that is roughly twice that of the white population since 1972. If this were a national statistic across our country, it would be considered a crisis. This talk is called, "What if we build Black wealth instead?" How to create lasting change in communities. And it's built on this thesis that if we begin to focus on addressing these specific challenges, especially these economic, fortifiable challenges that communities face, we begin to address many of the other social challenges that we are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I want to tell you, as my last story, a story of hope. Because my company has been applying this framework for the last several years, thinking deeply about how we can apply it and what does it look like. And one of the big words that comes up is this concept of fortification, right? We believe in fortifying communities. They should be stronger after we worked with them than they were when we came in. They should not be forever reliant on us. We should make them able, where possible, to take care of themselves more, to invest more in themselves, to build more of what they want, to be more self-determinant, and to be prosperous. So I'm going to give you an example of a project that my team worked on with that ambition. In Milwaukee, we were contracted by 3 CDFIs that had a vision to improve the ecosystem of support. These 3 CDFIs, through funding from JP Morgan Chase, sought to create a greater flow of capital to Black and brown business owners, an admirable goal. And they also sought to improve some of the systemic challenges that they saw in the ecosystem, which came down to how to refer those who came in to one CDFI to another CDFI should they not be able to serve them. How do we make sure that people get served even if we're not the right ones to do so? So we had conversations with those CDFIs and we understood those needs that I just told you. But as is always necessary, we make sure that we go and we have conversations as well with those who are most impacted within the system. And so in this case, we went and we talked with Black and brown entrepreneurs. The goal of this project initially was let me increase the flow of capital, which largely looks like loans to Black and brown business owners. The response from entrepreneurs when we talked to them, the first thing they said to us was, "I do not want more debt bondage. I am tired of the student loans that I have already. What I really need is someone who can help me move my business into a brick and mortar. I want someone who can help me incorporate my business. I want someone who can teach me how to write a business plan. And we realized that the solution being offered, though it had certain systemic elements to it, certain elements that would unite aspects of the ecosystem, it was incomplete. What it really required was something that could meet entrepreneurs where they were in that moment. And so we developed the Milwaukee Boss platform. It is a small business platform that helps give entrepreneurs a curated list of tools and resources, specifically from other service providers in their community, for where they are at that moment. It helps CDFIs deliver more funding when they're ready, when entrepreneurs are ready, and it also creates a way of referring between different individuals. This one-stop shop for Milwaukee's entrepreneurs of color helps them build, operate, scale, and sustain their small business. And through a process of clicking on this link here, they are able to enter their information, enter their racial identity, enter the phase of business that they're in, and tell different service providers more about where they are in their business journey. What do you need help with specifically? So that in the end, you can be matched to a loan or other educational opportunities. Not something that says, here, go to this organization, they're gonna be the ones who help you, but rather, there's a class on Tuesday that helps you write a business plan. Here's the link to sign up, so that we meet people where they are in that moment. In conclusion, the biggest takeaway from the work that I've been doing over the last several years is that many of our programs, services, our efforts, they lack this element of fortification. They lack the long-term view of fortifying the individuals we're serving. It is noble and useful to serve people today with their needs right now, but it is essential that we begin to think about how can we make sure that that person is served weeks, months, and years down the line as well. Not necessarily that we're the ones serving them, but they're fortified so that it's less about how much funding we gave to new entrepreneurs and more about how many of them are still here 5 years from now. How many of them are making profits so that they can invest back in their own communities, so that they can hire people who need jobs in their own communities? Less about how many beds did we fill in our housing unit, and more about how many of those folks were able to transition from that housing unit to long-term stable housing where they're able to take care of their families and others as well. And so that is hopefully the mindset that everyone can walk away from these experiences with as well. Thank you.